Welcome back, everyone, to Web3 Unpacked. I'm Rich Pasqua, and joining us today is Alex Nwaka, CSO and co-founder of Validation Cloud, a Web3 data streaming and infrastructure company that connects organizations into Web3 through a fast, scalable, and intelligent platform. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Great to be here.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you and to learn more about you and Validation Cloud. And you've been involved in technology for quite some time, pretty much your whole career. On the tech side, developing businesses and being an entrepreneur, but you're also, you started in the investment world, which is great. And I think that's a nice combination for Web3. And you've been active in startups, and now here you are with Validation Cloud. And you've been active with various venture capital funds as well, which is great. So before we get into it, a little bit of a tradition here, we like to kind of dig in and see what your personal Web3 journey was like, and how did you get started?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think for a lot of folks, it's a windy road. But as you mentioned, Rich, I actually cut my teeth in the world of traditional finance. My first set of roles in the professional realm were, really, investment banking and sort of, traditional finance in the, sort of investment banking realm. I then spent some time in various investment seats at family offices, including, Virgin Management, which is Richard Branson's family office. And then, as you mentioned, jumped around to a couple different venture capital firms over the course of, let's call it a decade or so. One being Touchdown Ventures, where I was on the early team there and was really focused on enterprise software investing. So one of the things that really jumped out to me, getting, sort of at least initially interested in the digital asset space, was really the power of wrapping open source software with incentive models, which is really fundamentally the way I look at sort of blockchain technology as a paradigm. I think it's a very powerful concept, and the light bulb went off for me that in some ways this is going to define the next 20 to 30 years of software. And there was no time like the present really to jump in, learn more, and get engaged and involved. And so that was roughly 5 years ago now. Actually initially got started on the capital side. My partners and I were investing our own personal capital and time into early stage networks at the time. That pretty quickly morphed into running our own validators on networks that we were involved in at the early stages. This is roughly around the time that proof of stake was a sort of newer paradigm that was just taking shape. We were very early pioneers there from an infrastructure perspective. And so that really led to an experience of, really third-party infrastructure tools that we thought weren't ready for showtime in the enterprise grade sort of context. And that drove us to start this company. Validation Cloud was really to address that need in the market that we identified, and is really the classic sort of founder pain that was felt from us, being active participants in the ecosystem and being, wholly unsatisfied for what was there. So that's us.
Yeah, it's great. And, much like a lot of us, we get involved literally just dipping our toes into the investment world. And then you have no other choice but to follow the rabbit hole, get into some of the more detailed documentation, see what's going on. And it's irresistible. Like the whole end of it, there's so many problems to figure out. And then, if you're like yourself and myself for the most part, developing applications behind the scenes to see if, one, can it be done? And two, do people, need this? Are we solving a problem? And that's great. And you guys are off to a good start. And collectively, your team has a real, all the fundamental ingredients for doing something great. Understanding, the blockchain itself, the development end of it, and certainly the investment and the VC end of it, which let's not leave that off. It's hugely important these days.
I couldn't
Whether
agree
you just
more.
start,
Couldn't
yeah,
agree more. I mean, it's I think we have an incredibly balanced founding team in that regard, and we also take great pride in building a broader team that has a deep set of experiences, not only from Web3 but also from Web2. That we believe that that's sort of a valuable characteristic to be able to bridge really these two technology paradigms. And so you'll see it in sort of the people that we select to join our team and the contributions they make here at the company.
yeah, and it's a great point you bring up, Alex. Web 2, you can't have Web 3 without Web 2, kind of, right now at least. There's always a 2.0 bridge. And, the folks who have been for many, many years developing 2.0 are now bridging, to your point, into Web 3. So that's great. And, from a, product standpoint, you guys break Validation Cloud out into staking, data, and API. We're going to unpack those in more detail as we go, but can you give us like the 40,000 foot, general overview of the product?
Sure. So we would very much describe ourselves as an infrastructure platform that has three distinct products or facets that you just described: staking, Node API, and data. I'll start with the sort of design principles or the product philosophy for us as a company overall. You heard me talk a little bit about how we were unsatisfied, frankly, with what we saw from an infrastructure perspective, which really drove us to build this company. We really have three things that we are operating against. We want to be, have performance, scalability, and compliance. We think these are kind of the core ingredients that make up our secret sauce from a technological perspective. But we also think that these are the three things that enterprises really care about that operate either in the Web 2 space or that operate in the Web 3 space. So those are three things that really underpin everything we do from a product philosophy standpoint. Again, because we've built a platform, we're obviously big believers in platform, and that means that we're able to bring, I'll call it, products and capabilities irrespective of where a blockchain project is in its stage of development. And so if you think about the three products that we have today, they roughly map to the stages of development of a blockchain ecosystem. So when you first get started as a blockchain, you're really solving for consensus layer infrastructure and bootstrapping that. And so validators and staking are sort of a core component of that. So that's where, sort of that product on our platform sort of resides. As a blockchain gets to mainnet and has applications that are building on top of it and users that are connecting into it, they need RPC nodes to be able to do that or facilitate that interaction. And so that's our Node API product. And then inevitably, as networks grow, their users need data in order to improve their applications, make intelligent decisions around how those ecosystems evolve and how they service their communities. And so that's sort of the data component of our platform. So that's how we think about our entire platform, and the idea of being able to service all of those needs through a singular provider is very valuable, not only for really network ecosystems, but when we think about the broader sort of target list of people that we work with, anybody who's from on the application side as well.
I like that you're really just focusing on kind of the data, the nodes, and the whole validation end of it, because to your point, those are the key ingredients to getting your blockchain started, and that's amazing. Now you talked a little bit about you started to kind of go into audience. Now, who are you serving? And as an end user, do I need to be technically savvy to start using this? I would imagine you have kind of maybe an individual entry point and a kind of a more corporate or enterprise level entry point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, maybe to summarize everything I just said around our sort of philosophy and how we sort of go to market, our view is that we're really preparing blockchains for enterprise adoption. And that's sort of everything about what we do, the people that we bring into the company, the solutions we try to bring. So by extension of that, our audience, really starts with networks and their ecosystems, right? Blockchain foundations and so forth. There's also, as part of that, the enterprise component, which, those are either applications or enterprises that want Web3 capabilities. That said, we also realize that, communities that, develop around these blockchain ecosystems involve individual users and developers. And we view that as another constituency that we have to serve, and serve well. In terms of the, accessibility and the technical savviness that's required, again, we've got a number of different resources and ways in which folks can get started. Again, I'm not the most technically savvy person, and so I'm usually a good guinea pig for looking at what are the different resources and things that we need to get a less technical savvy user going on our platform. But we also have the ability and capability to go and work more directly with larger players that, again, need the expertise and the know-how that we bring as very well-versed folks in the infrastructure space to be able to enable the capabilities they want. And so it's a spectrum in terms of our engagement style, depending on who it is that we're serving. But fundamentally, we have sort of the core constituency and then sort of the broader community of individual users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at an institutional level, there's you have development teams on your side as well. So it all works out. Now that from an individual standpoint, it could be a little bit different. And I approach a lot of these podcasts and research that I do every day from a yes, a little bit of a Web3 savvy person, but I also kind of put on my normie hat to make sure that I'm actually doing the right thing by end users. And one of the things that leads me to that is, if you have Ethereum or any other, many other, say tokens or cryptocurrencies, staking is involved, and that's very exciting, right? And I know that for Ethereum, you need, I don't know, 24 or 25 tokens or coins, ETH, to participate, or maybe it's
32.
32. Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
32. Now, can you give us a little bit more of like what staking on Validation Cloud is like, and is there a threshold that you need to meet?
Sure. So, one of the assets, so we'll use Ethereum as an example here that we support. We really support from what's called a validator as a service standpoint. And so we really give the capability to, let's call it the end user, to be able to run their own validator and be in more control, frankly, over sort of their own infrastructure and frankly their reward stream. We're also a non-custodial staking solution. Again, that is beneficial to the user to be able to have control over their funds and so forth and their assets. And so that's sort of a design philosophy there that we've made. But really the key things that we enable is the ability to launch a validator on Ethereum on demand in a dedicated environment, effectively, in real time and be able to manage that. That makes us pretty unique in terms of the full suite nature of what we're able to bring. We're also, because we're very clear on our abilities to be what we call, match Web 2 standards with what we're doing in Web 3. We're also SOC 2 compliant, which, again, is a really important standard from my perspective in terms of both security and sort of data compliance. So that's what we do, and that product, Validator as a Service, especially on Ethereum, is really geared towards institutional stakers. So folks that have lots of Ethereum that want to be able to launch and manage tens, hundreds, thousands of validators on Ethereum. We're really designed for that type of scale. And we also manage all of our reward streams that those validators generate through a series of smart contracts that actually handle all of the administrative accounting related to splitting rewards actually handles that via smart contract. And so it's highly transparent. It's highly scalable. All of those things that you would want if you're an institutional player staking Ethereum.
And you're the owner of your keys, right? At the end of the day, and you have full control, which is great. And let's talk a little bit about data storage security. I know you brought up SOC. If you can kind of tell us, our audience, a little bit more about SOC 2, and data and how you handle data, because it's it's an ongoing conversation. Whether you're an enterprise or an individual, your personal and or business data is everything. How do you handle it?
Yeah. So, the SOC 2 process is one that is, like, I would call the platinum standard in the Web 2 context. There are a variety of different components that you need to have approaches to in terms of not only treatment of customer data, but also approaches for, a potential data breach of some sort. And so it's very difficult to get that certification. We have invested the time and the resources to do that. What that all means in terms of like how we treat data. We treat our customers' data with the utmost sort of respect, and obviously have gone through the process of becoming SOC 2 because that's how we feel, and that's our sort of philosophy as a company. So from our perspective, we've got all of the best in class approaches in place and processes in place to safeguard that information and be able to give, frankly, our institutional customers comfort around that. And so again, this is really back to where possible to really match what I would term as the Web 2 standard that large, even traditional enterprises are used to. It just makes it much easier from not only saying yes to adopting certain capabilities in Web3, but also making us a very obvious choice as it relates to the type of vendor that these folks are looking for.
Yeah, you guys are checking all the boxes. Excuse me, and that's great because, to your point, that's one of the first things that people are looking for, or enterprises are looking for. Is security of data, breaches, what's your track record like, who's behind the curtain, all of the good stuff that people look into need to be front and centered and communicated properly. So it gives you the edge and it gives them the edge as well. Okay, that is fantastic. Let's see, Node APIs, right? So how is this, why would I need a validator node, right? I think, you answered most of that already, but can you walk us through that? What is it doing, how you get it set up, and all that good stuff?
Sure. So in the Node API context, this is about us delivering RPC nodes, which provide connectivity for applications into specific blockchains that they want connectivity into. Why this is important, I kind of joke with people, including my parents who are less, Web3 native, that this is effectively like your internet connection in your home. In order to connect in the internet, you need to have some sort of connectivity into that orbit. And so we're really providing that connectivity into specific blockchains. So if you want to run your application or connect to an application running on Ethereum, you need Ethereum RPC support to be able to facilitate that. So this is really, that sort of very basic level of connectivity in order to interact with pretty much anything you're doing in Web3 requires a node. And so I tell people that this is sort of the atomic unit for getting involved and getting connected. And there are sort of specific reasons that you would want a certain type of provider around RPC that we really over-index on. You heard me talk a little bit about our three sort of design principles of really performance, scalability, and compliance. We talked a lot about the compliance piece with SOC 2, but in terms of both performance and scalability, that's also a hallmark of what we deliver through this product as well.
Yeah, performance is everything. And, I was trying to make a transaction using ETH this morning, and, things were slow and confusing for someone who does this all the time. I was trying to use a different network, and it gets a little crazy. I wanted to ask this before, Now with all of, there's many different cryptocurrencies that you could be handling and setting up nodes for and data. Do you guys offer, basically, asset management as well?
So we don't specifically offer an asset management capability. Again, we're non-custodial, and so by definition, we're never taking ownership or custody of anyone's funds. Merely what we're providing is sort of capabilities, and I would, in the same realm as Web2, right? I would say we deliver a software solution, right, to enable people to do a variety of different things from an infrastructure perspective in the space. So we don't specifically have an asset management capability. In fact, we partner with asset managers and custodians and the like to be able to facilitate whether it's staking for their customers, or if again those entities need connectivity into certain networks from an RPC standpoint, we can also facilitate that. So again, we generally partner with those sort of folks around our different products and don't actually take custody of any funds. That's just not something we do.
Yeah, it's a great point. And for any of our past guests and perhaps listeners and viewers, asset managers pay attention, right? So great. That was great. Thank you. And, one of the things I've noticed, in working with, different Web3 projects over the many years, right? Some of them tended to kind of lock into one ecosystem, right? And, even with the idea of, Terra Luna, imploding, if you will, years ago, that sent shockwaves through the developer community. And it really, really hamstrung a lot of different projects and bankrupted a lot of projects because you're running so fast and lean. You can't, if you're not cross-chain, you're gonna have problems. So can you tell us a little bit of how interoperability works with Validation Cloud and the importance of being cross-chain?
So I think as a general matter, I think you're spot on in that interoperability is going to be a key let's call it paradigm for the Web3 ecosystem to embrace and facilitate. So we see that as obviously critical in order to have different types of ecosystems and assets talk to one another. That's just germane to pushing the space forward. In terms of how we participate as part of that, this is really about supporting certain types of interoperability or cross-chain either networks or projects. And so this is, I think on display with, what we're doing, with Zeta Chain as an example. And, you can look at, a variety of different projects that we've had the benefit of working very closely with, either as, a validator on their test net or as a provider of RPC, mainnet, and so forth. We try to get involved with projects that we view as really shaping the discussion and sort of the ground truth around interoperability. And so we sort of view it as like in everything that we do, let's stick to our knitting as an infrastructure platform and provider and support sort of these different, I'll call it themes and subcategories in a way that, again, brings our best to bear in terms of those underlying capabilities.
Mm. Yeah, you mentioned Theta. I'm a big fan of Theta. They've been on the show before. And I actually run a node. So it's a great little system they've got going there. And, speaking about nodes, they're all about nodes and the edge networks. Great. So, I come from a design background. Usability is everything for onboarding. I don't think Web3 is, we're in our infancy, if you will. I don't think anyone does it really well, but after I did not use it, to be honest. Obviously I'm not in your ecosystem just yet. Maybe down the road or through clients' needs, I will. But what I really did enjoy is seeing that you guys paid attention to your dashboard. Can you give us a little bit more behind the scenes with that? Because it really is super, super important.
Absolutely. So, I have to give credit to our team. We've got, some incredible people, both in product design, as well as engineering that I think have just exceptional, design philosophy and back to, something I mentioned earlier around, accessibility and thinking about, how do we make the experience seamless? And, that just has, permeated everything we do as it relates to product. Our dashboard is no different. And, there, the way that we think about our dashboard and how it's designed is, what are the key pieces of information that a user wants to have at their fingertips, and how do they want to consume that information? A piece of this is having an idea about what that is, but there's another, sort of aspect to this, which is what I call getting belly to belly, with the end user, right? And I think that we do that better than anybody else in the industry in terms of, constantly finding ways to engage users, engage prospects, understand and iterate, frankly, on sort of design principles. I think it's something that we're doing a great job of based on, sort of the activity level that we're seeing with our dashboards and so forth. So I think it's, a very high compliment coming from you. I know that you know a thing or two about design, and so really appreciate the compliment. But again, I have to give a lot of credit to our team, that's done a crackerjack job.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also, I ran product for several companies and for my own companies. It's all about, designing, developing, listening, rinse and repeat. Keep listening. It's the biggest thing in user experience design that is sometimes overlooked because you're excited, you're moving fast, but you do need to take a step back, listen to your audience, and make the right adjustments. Because again, we're in our infancy, and there are no road signs right now from a design perspective. So you really have to kind of use 2.0 best practices, but also build on top of that in the Web3 universe. So that is really good news, and kudos to the design team. I really like the direction you're going in. Now, whenever I can make parallels to institutions or cryptocurrencies or L1s, L2s across any network, I will. And you guys are into. Tell me, I'm a huge fan of Chainlink. What is your relationship to them? They're actually, they've been around for a while, and day one I was like, this is a really important protocol. This is a really important product that people need to be aware of. And it is all about data, fluid data usage, offline to off chain to on chain. How are you working with them?
Yes, so we've been working with Chainlink for several years now. We are one of the oracles on Chainlink that actually provides and pushes price feeds for a variety of different assets or ecosystems. And so we have been huge fans of what Chainlink has not only built, but what they're doing currently and plan to do in the future. I think this is a good example of how we like to work with ecosystems that we, decide to partner with. We view everything as a multi-year sort of relationship, and are constantly asking what more can we do to support that project or that capability in sort of their future plans from an infrastructure perspective. And so again, we're huge fans of Chainlink. We've been, again, sort of a core constituency from an infrastructure perspective on the Oracle front. And again, we're really excited about the prospects of it continuing to expand, our relationship with Chainlink based on things that they plan to do in the future. And again, I think this is just exemplifies the way that we think about being smart and choosing which ecosystems we want to partner with, and then going all in those partnerships. We think that that's really important and leads to great outcomes.
Yeah, and not financial advice by any means here. But like I said, I'm a big fan of Chainlink. They just they're part of the backbone, I would say, of the blockchain. So you know, do your homework, people. Look into them. They're not going away, and they're one of the bigger players, and it's affordable to get into if you're into investing. Again, not financial advice, but really interesting project. I'm glad you guys are working with them. That's a really good sign in my eyes. And talking about partners, and who are you guys working with? What are some of the if you can actually say it, you know.
Sure. So, I'll talk about what ecosystems we're playing a really big role in, and then, talk a little bit more about, how we see, sort of those relationships and sort of ecosystems evolving. And so, you know, anybody can visit our website and kind of see where, we have support for, but in recent years, I'd highlight a few, partnerships that I've been spending a lot of time with and on. Hedera is one, Stellar is another, Casper. These are, ecosystems where, we're quite involved in sort of the infrastructure support side, not just on what they're providing today, but also when they think about new launches or new, let's just call it capabilities of their network, whether it's, smart contract support, these sort of things. And so our philosophy in each one of these ecosystems that we participate in is, one, to come in and be really the true, let's call it, enterprise sort of support for infrastructure for projects that need that level of service, right? And so we often are looking for, and really the only obvious choice for, like, larger, let's call it, high number of transactions, high need for high levels of, like, availability and resilience of the infrastructure. We're sort of the natural choice for those, let's call it, enterprise use cases, which we can talk more about. But then also we want to make sure that we make our services available, right, to, the single developer that's building a DApp. And so we also try to, give, access and really engage that community with the help of our network partners. And so that's sort of the way in which we think about, one, starting to offer support for an ecosystem. And then once we get into the ecosystem, it's really on us and our ecosystem partners to say, okay, who are the folks that really need our particular capabilities in terms of what we deliver, in terms of performance, scalability, and compliance, and how does that evolve?
Mm. Yeah, and again, coming back to supporting and listening to your community. Now, do you guys have an entry point via your website or Discord or whatever it
We
is?
do. We do. So, anybody can engage us through our website. Again, back to this philosophy of accessibility. And so anybody can go to our website and actually get started right there. We also have for folks that maybe have more bespoke needs, or what I would term as real, enterprise sort of needs, can always contact us not only through our website, but also through a variety of different other channels. And again, depending on, we have a very wide spectrum of engagement types and models. And so everything from self-service to, again, what I would call more of a one-to-one, sort of engagement and relationship that is a bit more hands-on, or white glove. We're sort of open and capable of all that entire spectrum. But again, we just want to be accessible. We want to be a resource to folks, even as they start to think about, either, traditional, enterprises that are thinking about, hey, I want to launch a Web3 capability, or, hey, I have some ideas about, things that we want to do from a technology stack perspective. We're often, for a lot of those folks, their first call, just to even understand, what it would take, and what the considerations are. I think this has a lot to do with, frankly, the fact that we've, as a company, and sort of as individual contributors on the team, have really just spent time at sort of the intersection of really the Web2 space and the Web3 space, and have a lot of experience working with not only networks but applications in their earliest stages of development, and so know the pitfalls, know the considerations, and try to, again, pay it forward with our know-how to those folks.
Yeah, and that accessibility is everything. And, paying it forward a little bit with knowledge and help along the way is basically the entire ethos of Web3. So that's great. I enjoy seeing companies that are open, and very transparent and accessible. And I think that's key. I think tons and tons of companies or the industry got dinged years ago with ICOs. Everything was black box. You didn't know who was who. So now, everyone, the founders, the development team, well, not the entire development team, but the founders at least, and the people running the organizations need to be front and center. They need to be listening and give you the proper doorways for support. So that's awesome. Again, you guys are doing, checking the boxes. It's really good. Now, as we wrap up a little bit, Alex, and this might be slightly loaded, but, in the next year, what are you most excited about? It could be within your company, obviously, or anything outside in the beautiful world of blockchain. What are you excited for?
So I had this discussion with our VP of Sales and BD, who joined our team in November. I think that this next market movement in the crypto space will be mostly defined by institutional adoption. I believe that in my bones. I think we're seeing it, as a ground truth for our company based on the conversations we're having that are active. And so it's a really exciting prospect for that to be coming to fruition from our view. And so if you ask me what I'm most excited about, it's seeing that steady drumbeat of institutional adoption take form here in the calendar year of 2024. I think selfishly, I think we are, one of the best positioned companies in the space to really facilitate that adoption. And that's not only because of the way in which we've architected our technology platform and deliver solutions, but it's also, again, we've thought very long and hard about how we want to go to market and be that catalyst, for that type of adoption. So that's what I'm most excited about, which really is not only like an idiosyncratic thing for Validation Cloud, but it's also, I think, a trend that's a macro trend in our space. And so definitely something I'm thrilled about, and already seeing green shoots that is sort of taking place in the here and now.
Yeah, and it is all about adoption. I couldn't agree more. This year, in particular, 2024, it's going to be exciting on many, many levels, but we are starting to see institutional adoptions. From personally, and this is my opinion, POV, if you will, you got to be careful of who you get into bed with, right? I mean, not you guys. I'm talking the industry in general. Mm-hmm. ETFs, BlackRock, Vanguard, they're in it to win it, and they only play to win it all. So you have to be careful of, who you're dealing with. Ultimately, I think it'll be a great thing, just from a financial standpoint, investment standpoint, for, mom and pops to kind of get in and buy the ETFs. There's already a flood of billions and billions of dollars going into the markets. It's great. But again, everything is still fresh and new in this world. So we all have to be very, very careful. We have to continuously do our homework as an individual investor or an institutional company, building and working across the blockchain. Be very careful of who you kind of get in bed with. So that's great. You guys are taking all the right steps. Again, checking the boxes. Now, what do you guys have any events coming up? Are you going to be speaking at any conferences that our audience might be interested in?
We have quite a sizable amount of our team attending ETH Denver later this month. We're actually hosting an event with one of our partners, Hedera, on March 1st. I think we also have our ecosystem lead, Dan Kazanoff, is doing a webinar coming up that I can get you some information on in terms of him speaking. And then, as we look forward, there's Digital Asset Summit, which is taking place in London. We're planning to be at that. That's sort of mid-March. I think Paris Blockchain is not that long after that, maybe 2 weeks after that. We'll likely have a presence there. And then we'll also, I'll be at least at Token 2049 Dubai in April. So we've got a very active, sort of conference schedule, but again, we'd like to, be at, really the marquee events that, bring together the various communities and constituencies we like to engage with, and, take a really proactive role in sort of creating space, right, to have either new conversations or catch-up conversations with our partners, our prospects, our customers.
That's generally how it works. Those conferences are, you got some speaking engagements, you're listening and learning, but you're also, it's a huge networking, event for doing business with your partners, like you said. And ETH Denver is a big one. I probably should get my butt over there as well. Everyone I've been talking to is like, yep, ETH Denver. We're going to be there. We're speaking, we're presenting, or they have a booth, whatever they're doing. Tons and tons of, very diverse Web3 companies that are going to be there. So that's a good one. Little plug for them. And where can our viewers and listeners get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So through our website, validationcloud.io. Also, please feel free to follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn at Validation Cloud. We also have a blog on Medium that I would encourage folks to go to and sort of take a look at some of our content. We try to, in a lot of ways, educate, provide some know-how, and provide insight as it relates to where infrastructure meets actual practical applications in the space. And so, again, a lot of really great content there that we're constantly adding to. And again, folks can really engage us through any one of our channels. We are very proactive in terms of striking up and maintaining dialogue across those different platforms.
And now, do you guys have a Discord channel as well?
We currently don't have a Discord channel. It's something that we've talked about and considered, but have not necessarily put into action yet. We have our plates a little bit full already with the variety of places we're already available, but something that we've thought about and will continue to consider.
Yeah. And look, it's like I see a lot of different companies and protocols using Discord and other services as well. But really the hotspot is X. And it becomes this community forum, but it becomes a tool as well. You're going to launch off to your website anyways. So, and kind of go through your portals anyways. So, all good information. It's good to kind of understand where people's heads are and how they manage their teams too. So, now, it's been a pleasure, Alex. I look forward. I still have to dig in a little bit more. You do have a ton of great articles on your site and on X. So I encourage our viewers and listeners to kind of go and learn more, because this is a vital tool. If you're trying to scale and, build a product the right way, I would encourage you to take a look at it. So thank you so much for joining us, Alex.
Rich, thank you for having me. It's been fun. Looking forward to doing this again soon, and really appreciate the thoughtful questions and giving us a platform to talk about what we're working on and how we're changing the industry.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Thank you.